Hello and welcome back to everyone that's tuned in to the American Ultras Talk channel. Thank you so much for being here with us again. It's Tuesday, another stock watch time. Again, the show that we review the players whose stocks went up or down based on their performance over the week and the weekend. We had Camp Cupcake there in between as well for those of you guys that tuned in for that. But after all was said and done during this week, Brayden, first one to get a mention from you. Is it a stock up, a stock down? Who is it?
Yeah, usually I like to start with a stock up, but unfortunately this week it is going to be a down, mixing it up a little bit. And I'm going to go for Joe Scally to start things off, just because he was benched for, I think, the first time all season. Midweek, they had the game against Wolfsburg, and they lost 5-1. It was a very bad performance for Gladbach, leading to him getting benched for the weekend game against Leverkusen, which they lost 3-1 as well, but he didn't get a single minute, not even off the bench. So I think it's really the first time all season that his starting spot has been in real jeopardy. So I think it has to warrant a stock down for me.
Completely understandable. Scally's one of those guys nobody tunes in, understandably so, and I'm actually surprised that he's not seeking to move away or being vocal about it, or even his agents. Nothing gets really rumored, and I feel like that's what he needs to do in order to elevate his career. So if you start with the stock down, I'll go with the stock down as well from a player that you'd like, so you're not going to like me for this one. Is CCV, one of your favorites, scored an own goal. And he never gets talked about when he has a bad match. I mean, unless it's something ridiculous like the own goal he had in the Champions League, people always seem to ignore all the things that he does badly. 3-3 in that Farmers League that the Scottish Premiership is. It has to be a stock down. This is a guy that some people are really calling to be a starter. Please tune in, people. Trusty is nothing amazing, but he's better than CCV in my opinion. He's proven it this season already. So I'll start with a stock down as well. Hopefully now we move on to a positive. Who's the next one?
Yeah, it is going to be a positive next, but I'm upset at you for picking CCV because I was going to pick him myself, honestly. I mean, I think anyone who actually pays attention would have him as a stock down. But next up is a stock up, and it's going to be Tyler Adams. Pretty pleasant surprise this season since he did finally come back from injury. He's been very solid. I think they had the midweek game against Chelsea, and he was pretty good. 2-2 draw for them, which is always a good result against a high-quality team like that. And then over the weekend, I thought it was probably his best game of the season, a 4-1 win, dominating Newcastle, who are also contending for those European spots with them. Bournemouth are now up into 6th. There's a very real chance they could even push for not even just Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, because obviously, as we all know, with the new format, some leagues do get a 5th spot in the Champions League if the Prem is that. Bournemouth are close to that, and I don't think anyone would have expected that at the start of the season. So huge props is in order for Andoni Iraola, the manager, the entire squad. But Tyler Adams is a big part of that, and hopefully his success continues, because imagine seeing Tyler Adams with tiny Bournemouth in the Champions League or even in the Europa League. I think it would be crazy. So he's deserved a stock up for a while now, and he finally gets one.
It would be the coolest stadium in the Champions League for sure, but props to him for it, because staying fit is something that we need to take a note on. And also, I think that he's far and away the best 6 we really have. Maybe some are better on the ball than him, maybe some are more refined, but taking it all into account, he is the best one. He's proving that. Really glad for him. I'll go with the stock up as well. I'll go with Weah. I think Weah came in and had an instant impact on the game in the derby right there for Juve against Milan. Beautiful goal, beautifully taken. I think Weah has had a really good season compared to how last season went for him. I think it's fair to say he has acclimated himself as a solidified player in that squad for Juventus. Maybe not a starter, but he's a useful player, if anything, and scoring that in that type of match definitely raises his caliber. I think really good match for him, and hopefully things keep getting better for him. I think I like him sort of as a super sub for Juve, not really coming on at the end of the game, but he helps manage the game defensively and also attacking wise. Really, really happy with his progress this season.
Yeah, it's been nice to see, and I've seen some rumors recently that Everton are interested in him, which I think they were also interested in him before he even made the move to Juve. I just don't think it would make sense at all to go to that kind of struggling club, but we'll see what happens in the rest of the window. On to my next pick, it's back to stock down, unfortunately, and it's another CDM like Tyler Adams, but it's going to be Johnny Cardoso. 2 tough games, I guess, for Real Betis this week. First midweek, they had the Copa del Rey against Barcelona, and he just wasn't good. Although, granted, it was a 5-1 win for Barcelona. The entire squad wasn't really good, besides Vitor Hockey getting his goal against his parent club, which was cool to see from that aspect. But ultimately, Johnny just was being ran circles around by Pedri, Gavi, De Jong. It was kind of disappointing to see. It's one of the highest levels you can play against as a Real Betis player, but still, I would have expected to see maybe a little bit more from him. And even on the weekends at home against Deportivo Alaves, a huge game for Betis because they're having a pretty poor season. Alaves were in the relegation zone before this game, and they lose 3-1. Just honestly, it's been a catastrophic season for Betis as a club. They're sitting in 12th in La Liga, absolutely nowhere near the ambitions that they would have. And Johnny wasn't really good in either of the games, so I think it has to be a stock down. Although it is nice that he is playing week in, week out, every single game, no matter the competition, he's always starting. So that's good to see, at least. But if Betis continue like this, and there's no signs to say that they won't, I think he might need to look for a move in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about Johnny in the past. I really don't get all of the hype that goes around. And if he goes to the Prem, like a club like Spurs, we're in for a big ride for him. But yeah, I think it's a really tough season for Betis. But hopefully now they do better. They have a fidget spinner now in the attack, so that can also brighten things up. But I'll go right now with the stock up. I mentioned the winger, the fidget spinner. I'll go with a player that is very direct, electric, Griffin Yao. Picking him for a stock up because he seems to score in the big matches. I think he scored against Club Brugge earlier in the season, now scored against the Royal Antwerp. Granted, Westerlo are back down to earth. They were never gonna keep up that little run of 4 or 5 games at the beginning of the season, but he was really good. I think that at the end of the season, he should be in for a move. Now back to full fitness. Really happy for him. This is a player that gets really under the radar, understandably so, because of the season where the league where he plays, but he's a really talented guy. It's interesting to see where he goes because he really is very silky on the wing and direct, which I really like.
Yeah, and a quick little note about that goal as well. It was a penalty that was actually drawn by Brian Reynolds, the two Americans linking up of sorts to score that goal. Both of them have also had heavy interest in this window, so maybe one of them gets on the move. You never know. And on to my next pick, it's going to be, well, I just mentioned Brian Reynolds. It's going to be a fullback like him, but a left back. And back to the Premier League, all of our players have been playing well in there recently, which is different than usual, I would say. But this one is Mr. Consistent. Jedi Robinson, 2 assists against West Ham. Granted, if you watch the assists, they were probably the luckiest assists he'll get in his entire career. But hey, they all count. He remains third in the assists tally in the Premier League, just behind, of course, Mo Salah, Bukayo Saka, 2 absolutely world-class wingers, 2 of the best players in the world, bar none. And the fact that he's sitting third just behind them and ahead of every other player is kind of surreal. Just as an American, as a fullback, as a Fulham player, all of these things would have been unlikely. And when you combine them all into one, almost impossible. And you have the added bonus of a clean sheet on the road against Leicester over the weekend that he also played well again in. So just a flawless week from Jedi, as always. Really, I mean, he could be stock watch every single week because he never puts in a bad performance. We'll see if he's another one who gets some interest because he's definitely good enough for some bigger clubs, and he's proved that this season.
Absolutely, yeah, he really did pocket. He shut out Ayo in that match against Leicester. It was quite funny to see. Anytime he tried to progress against Jedi, he was locking him up. For my stock up, another defender in the Prem, it's going to be Chris Richards. I think it's the first time that I pick him for stock up in this season. It's been a little rough for him, but after injuries and some really bad performances, he got a clean sheet. He can say that he was a big part of that. Thought he was really good in the air. A little bit hesitating a little bit on the passes, just putting it to the side. I don't mind if defenders do that, but really nice to see him get an actual solid performance for Crystal Palace. Pick him for stock up because I think he needs it. It's been a very, very rough season for him. And I don't know, we mentioned transfers. Maybe he's one to look at some point because I don't think he'll be a for sure starter for Palace in the long run.
I'm not so sure about that because Trevoh Chalobah, who they had on loan from Chelsea, was just recalled, and he even got an assist in his first game back. So shout out to him for proving Chelsea wrong when they initially got rid of him in the summer. But 3 clean sheets in a row now for Richards and Crystal Palace, 1 in the FA Cup against lower league opposition, but 2 this week against Leicester and West Ham. They're now sitting above Man United and Spurs in the table. So even though it's been a slow start to the season, at least they can say that. I don't think anyone would have expected that if you had said that in the start of the year. But onto my final pick, and it's going to be another center back, but unfortunately, it won't be a stock up. I'm going to pick Henry Chase. He's had a lot of hype this season because he kind of broke through into the Stuttgart team. No one really would have expected it, but he's lost his place recently. He had, I think, a small injury about a couple of weeks ago that had him not playing as much, and he's basically dropped out of the Stuttgart first team entirely. He played with their second team over the weekend against Hansa Rostock in the third division, and he just did not play well, gave up a penalty, and overall just a bad performance. And from a guy who has played Champions League nights against Real Madrid this season, it's definitely not the fault of grace that he would have wanted. Granted, there's still a lot of time for him, and I still think he's one of the highest priority dual nats, but Japan have been hesitant to call him up. We haven't seen him in a U.S. squad yet. I think we know why now. I mean, even Noakai Banks has played more Bundesliga minutes recently than he has, so that's something to watch as well. But hopefully Chase can get back in the Stuttgart team, but for now it does have to be a stock down.
It just goes to show how poor we are at the back. We're thirsting over a player that really isn't for sure starter, not even a starter. He's just a squad player for a team, which is fair due to his age. But it goes to show how our fan base is desperate for someone to step up in that position. I'm going to go for another player that had some injury. Well, he's always had issues with injuries. It's going to be Josh Sargent. If you look at it this season, I think it's fair to say it's his worst out of the last 2-3 seasons he's had. Obviously, not always down to his play, but I will factor in his performance for the USMNT when he got the chance, and now being back, slowly acclimating himself back into the squad, a few minutes here and there. I just look at the entirety of the season. Last matches that he actually played a part in were in October. We're going to go into February, mid-February by the time that he actually starts getting maybe starts, because he's playing very little here and there. Hopefully things pick up in the next couple of weeks, but I think it's just very frustrating to watch him. And also Norwich, compared to how they had been in previous years, I feel like this season they're really not going to fight for anything, which is sad to see because they are one of the giants of the championship. They're the biggest Dolphin club, up and down. But that brings it to a close on the ones for this week. Now, the ones that we're going to be recommending on our stock watch, we always recommend one mainstream player and one under the radar. Who are you going for, Braden?
Well, just a quick counterpoint on Sargent. He just came back from injury. He played off the bench in their last two games against Brighton and Sheffield United, two very, very high-level clubs in terms of who Norwich usually play. I think he'll be back in the lineup, and you say that they have been having a bad season. That's true, but I think that's mainly due to the fact that Sargent has been out for so long. They're still only 5 points off playoffs. I think there's a lot of time for them and for Sargent to regain his form. But in terms of the USMNT stuff, absolutely. He's been a huge disappointment. But for my picks for this coming week, I'm going to go for the sleeper one first. It's going to be Aidan Morris, another player in the championship who just came back from injury. He got his first appearance since November off the bench in their game over the week, and I think this game midweek that they have against West Brom is the perfect opportunity for him to maybe get back into the starting lineup. If not, they have another game over the weekend against Preston. As you know, in the championship, there seems like they're playing 3 games a week. There's so much opportunity for squad rotation, and I think as soon as he gets back into the starting lineup, he's fully recovered. I don't think he's going to lose his spot, because the first half of the season, up until he did get injured, he was unplayable, absolutely undroppable. He was a mainstay in the starting lineup, and I think he will be that once he's fully recovered. And then for the main player to watch, I'll go for another midfielder, Weston McKennie. Well, we say he's a midfielder, but really he plays every position. I mean, it's incredible. He plays left back one week, attacking mid, the next right back. What can't he do? Honestly, it's insane. But I'm putting him as a player to watch just because Juve have not only the Champions League game against Club Brugge, which is going to be important. It's an away match. They also have Napoli away, which is, they haven't lost in the league at all this season. 8 wins, 13 draws, terrorism ball from Thiago Motta. But if they are going to finally lose a game in the league, this would be the opportunity to do it. Against top of the league on the road is a huge game. And if they want to maintain the unbeaten record, McKennie is going to have to play a huge part, regardless of what position he's at. So those are my 2 players to watch for the coming week.
Interesting. Yeah, it's crazy to see how Thiago Motta's plan has really fallen compared to how he was last season at Bologna. But I'm going to pick a player that was involved against Thiago Motta this weekend. My mainstream one is going to be Yunus Musa, a player that I've been critical of quite a few times. But I think that midweek playing against Girona, he might have a play in. I think that Ben Astor has been really poor. Musa starting, he wasn't really bad against Juve. I thought he was all right. And I would be betting that he actually starts midweek against Girona. I think he can do well against them. They had a drop off, as we know. And then for my under the radar pick, I was really struggling on who to pick right here. I've been a really big fan of Serie B because my club is always in Serie B. Venezia, they're going back down there next year. I'm going to pick Jonathan Klinsmann because I think that he's been a little bit poor recently, and they're going to be playing against Bari, who are right above them in the playoff spots. As we know, Serie B is crazy with the playoffs. I'm going to pick him because I'm going to be watching him, so that's who I will be recommending, a guy that I'll definitely tune in to see how he does. Yeah, we're desperate at the goalkeeping position too, so who knows. But let us know in the comments below what you thought about this week. We didn't really mention Camp Cupcake. We had a video about that, so let us know if you thought it was unfair to not mention those guys here. Your picks for the week, who impressed you the most. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.